DS9 really is a place where a lot of familiar faces can come back around for the trial scene you needed. Here on V'ger Please, a vile visit to Bajor. My name is Joseph.
Hello, I'm your co-host, Peter. You may remember me from such podcasts as V'ger Please, a hateful voyage through the Delta Quadrant, and V'ger Please, a heinous trip at Warp 5.
Before we talk about all of the special guest stars that we know and love in this episode of DS9 that we've watched this week, I think you and I have to revisit actually an old love of ours and the way that has been somewhat revivified in an unexpected turn of events. And this has to do with the show we originally reviewed, Star Trek Voyager. The I guess we'll call the diamond in the rough for a
I
lot
know,
of
Joe. I just said
fans.
I was a co-host from that podcast. I just
Yes.
gave you the resume. I was there.
Yes.
And in true Voyager format, they weren't good enough to do it big.
No.
No movies, no live action follow-up. Voyager gets a cartoon. And that cartoon is Star Trek Prodigy, which I initially was more than happy to write. See, I was going to drop the F-bomb, but I'm holding back because now we got this YouTube thing going.
We're algorithm maxing. We're algorithm maxing.
We're
trying
selling
anyway.
out. We're selling out. I'm changing who I am because I want to reach a bigger audience so we can have people respond with venom in the comments and make me hate myself and my decision to do this.
It's really good that you understand what exactly the cycle is going to be like. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah. See, on Facebook, I can see your picture and maybe figure out where you live, but YouTube's harder. So Prodigy comes out and it's a big joke, right? Because it's Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
And
it's a super duper kids show. Yeah.
You know, of course, it's on the garbage dumpster fire that is what, Paramount Plus initially?
Correct.
Oh, no, it was CBS All Access back then, right?
Maybe it was originally still CBS All Access then, but it may have been Paramount Plus by the time the one season of this actually came out. I do not recall.
Skip to the end of this conversation where the revelation is that this thing, from what I'm hearing, is legit. We need to come up with a term that is I guess a bait and switch, but something more positive, where it's a Star Trek adjacent premise is being pitched to the money people, and the money people do not want Star Trek, so they have to masquerade it as something else. Orville is masqueraded as Family Guy like poop and fart humor, right?
Correct.
Prodigy was masqueraded as little kids, I don't know, Bluey in space or something. Peppa Pig in space. And then they get in a couple episodes, the bait and switch happens, and it's, haha, here's this thing that's actually what 42-year-old men want to watch.
Or at least have some interest in, right? Like, it's still very much a kid's show from my understanding, but the fact that it's like, it has the Voyager A and Janeway's in command and Chakotay's there and the
Spoilers,
doctor.
Joe, Jesus.
You know, like, they just brought the whole Voyager old folks home to the degree they could back together and just decided to kind of do some Voyager-ish episodes in this kid's show.
You think kids go to college for free in the United States, Joe?
They most certainly do not.
I have it on good personal authority that Robert Beltran has a daughter.
He does. Unfortunately, we have encountered her.
Not that she's a bad person, but I did not want to encounter her
I
on
just
that.
didn't want to encounter a child on the internet. This is never good.
But you think she's going to school for free? No. You got to make money, Joe. And that means voice work.
You get some sweet scale pay for doing voice work on Nickelodeon. But like I really actually do appreciate that if they're going to make a show and it's going to be for kids, go dip into the rich history of the IP, right? Like kids aren't going to know, right? Like they don't care. So you could basically do anything there, but why not connect it to, guess what? A Star Trek show their parents would have watched. Which suddenly the synergy seems to make sense.
Yeah, well, listen, Joe. All right?
Yeah,
I got kids.
Exactly. You.
I liked a good Was it a good portion of Voyager?
I mean, you co-opted yourself into enjoying it.
I enjoyed at least half of Voyager. At least. Uh, so I should be predisposed to watching this thing. And I am. Now that I know that they're going to go Voyager heavy, the real golden goose here was Netflix grabbing this thing off the ground and running with it.
Yeah.
No one gives a fuck about Paramount Plus, which is why it's dying.
Yes. I don't even have it anymore. I've figured out the whole VPN thing, so don't need it.
But you put it on Netflix. Everybody's got Netflix. Netflix is the right home for Star Trek. It's why Star Trek became a thing. It's where all the new Trek came from. As everybody's like, Jesus Christ, look at these TNG and Voyager viewership numbers. And then Paramount got greedy and pulled it back to Neff themselves in the A. You put it on Netflix. It's easy. It's fun. I need to sit down and really dedicate myself to watching this thing. And, one of the biggest mistakes that Star Wars made when they dropped the ball was losing that generational handoff. Because for a long time, from 70 whatever to, I don't know, whenever Disney got it, basically, it was a block solid, airtight property that generation to generation, everybody loved it. And then they destroyed their fan base.
Even in the years where there was no Star Wars content, of which there were many, right? 78, 80, 82. That's when the original movies came out. And then after 82, there wasn't another movie until 99, I think, is when Phantom Menace came out. So you're talking about a period of time of approximately 17 years when there was 0 movies. All you had were extended universe material.
Badass video games.
And a lot of it was great. Like some of the books were fantastic. Timothy Zahn trilogy, kind of like a classic of young sci-fi reading, I think, at the time. You had the whole Shadows of the Empire, like multimedia thing, included a game, a comic, basically everything but the movie is what they
slash fic. I mean, I'm sure that Prince Zixor / Liam.
Oh yeah, hot and heavy. And other multimedia things, like you said, you had Dark Forces in there. You had all kinds of like games, TIE Fighter, X-Wing, and then finally the prequel era comes out, and that just revifies everything, right? It provides more material for more multimedia stuff. So that is a brand that stayed relevant culturally with really minimal activity in terms of theatrical releases over the course of many decades.
Many generations.
Indeed.
And they effed it up, and now Star Wars is in a rough spot where nobody cares, and how do you draw the fans back in? And Star Trek, I think, is doing a little bit better. Discovery, obviously not our cup of tea.
New.
But Strange New Worlds was great, and I love Lower Decks. It's doing better overall. And then you throw in this Prodigy thing, which is really the odd man out. And you can say, all right, well, this is a kid's show and write it off as a cartoon. But if they're putting the level of continuity, and how funny it takes a cartoon to actually make Voyager self-reference itself.
I know, right? Suddenly the history of Voyager matters 20 years after the show fucking ends.
To the characters of the show, where what they did 2 weeks ago, nobody could remember. The Delta Quadrant Bermuda Triangle effect, right? Mm-hmm. But if you can get in there and get kids and young adults interested in this cartoon that's very accessible via Netflix, and you start laying groundwork on Voyager, then maybe when Skydance, who does not have an online distribution platform,
they were just venture capital rich kids that were funding movies that Paramount were making.
So I would think if they're smart, they're going to go back, knock on Netflix's door and go, hey, remember us?
You would hope, right? You'd hope they close a money-losing streaming platform and just go back to doing licensing. I mean, this is an entirely different medium, but it's a similar story. Sega used to make their own consoles, famously so, right? Like they were a huge player in the console space.
Shout out Dreamcast.
Yeah, Master System into Genesis into Dreamcast.
And walk right over my Sega CD, huh?
Well, I said Genesis. Like it's all. I had the Genesis Sega CD 32X combo. You can't touch where I was at. All right.
You have the Super Scope was NES. It was the Menacer. Was that what it was?
for the Genesis. I did
The
not have a
Genesis light
I
gun.
did not have any Genesis light gun games, so I never
Well,
had.
then fuck you, and how dare you, sir?
I had Star Wars the arcade on 32X. That was banging.
What was it like to be rich as a child, Joe?
It wasn't that I was rich. It's that I just waited 6 months and then all of that stuff crashed into the dirt. You could buy it at Funko Land for my lawn mowing money. For I have a whole rich backstory I could give you, Peter. That's a different podcast. So my story there to say they got out of the business of making consoles because they realized that was a money losing proposition. They were throwing a ton of their potential profit away by trying to create their own platform when they were much better off just making licensed software games for their otherwise competitors. And sure enough, that helped sustain that brought their company back from the brink, and they are a huge player in the game space to this day because they made that realization. And Paramount needs to make the same realization. They don't need to have their own distro platform. They just need to sell what they have to the other ones at a higher price. You can do it. You've got stuff people want. Make them buy the stuff you want at a higher price. You can afford to continue to experiment and produce new stuff and find new income streams by selling that stuff. It's good. You can do it. If I can figure it out, Sundance and you fucking billionaires can figure it out. All right.
Yeah, Mr. Oracle can.
Now.
Oracle Jr. Point being, you hook these kids, you build the foundation of the Voyager story. They get access to potentially watch Voyager. They watch Voyager because now they want to, it's characters they already know, and let's go through the growth and the slow, horrific realization that Catherine Janeway is a bad person.
Yes, a monster that helped the Borg live. Yeah.
That Seska is phenomenal.
Rest in peace, Queen.
The only queen I would ever encourage to truly slay.
Here's just for her once, right here.
Oh. I got goosebumps. Seska, is that you or she at? There's so many reused actors in this episode of Deep Space Nine. Was her name Martha Hackett?
Martha Hackett, yes.
Why is she not in this episode of Deep Space Nine?
What was that episode we watched? Oh, do you have more? That was a great segue if you didn't have more.
I'm just saying that back building in brand loyalty to brainwashing / programming kids, predisposing them to watching your golden age Berman era stuff, real smart move. And I think, again, once Voyager is readily accessible to the Netflix audience, you're going to see an even bigger uptick as this Prodigy thing digs in. So I will commit to watching.
Yeah, and I think it's just really funny, or I think it's just a great move on their part to say, if we're going to make a Trek kids show, let's make it so that it appeals to the middle-aged adult parents of said child that also like Star Trek by bringing in the Trek they watched, right? And Voyager is super perfect for that because was kind of Lost in Space style show to begin with. There's no like storyline weirdness with any of that, right? You're not running into like bringing like TNG people are still being used for things. DS9 stuff didn't like land in a place. It's not really like a kids accessible show. So Voyager is.
What, you mean with Quark contractually obligating people into sexual slavery?
I don't think you want that for the children.
I don't want my 3 daughters getting into that.
I don't think you want them to be Dabo girls. I think that's like literally your job to prevent them from being Dabo girls.
Keep them off the table.
Yeah.
And very importantly, and who knows if this is really stuff that they put any forethought into, I'm joking when I say like Voyager's not good enough for anything other than a cartoon, but like that's the truth, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason it didn't get a movie. There's a reason these guys aren't in live action stuff, minus Tim Russ in season 3 of Picard, which was excellent. And I guess,
7
Jerry,
and 9, but she kind of like she evolved.
But Voyager, of all the old properties, absolutely aged the best in terms of modern audience and very well done diversity. So if there's anything to pitch to, I don't even know, is this Gen Z we're on at this point, or is it something
alphas
else?
These are Gen alphas that are going to be watching Prodigy. God help us. But before God can help us, we need to review this episode of Deep Space Nine. What was it called?
I thought we already did the Q episode.
We did.
Oh, you invoked God, and I thought that.
Oh, okay.
All right. Season 1, Episode 8, Dax, first aired February 13th, 1993. Teleplay. This is important, guys. You got Peter Allen Fields as a secondary, your primary DC Fontana, which is old original series writer. And she's a big
Correct.
deal because it's a lady and she's well respected. She's got to be old AF at this point. And here she is, punching it in, directed by David Carson, which I don't, if he's done stuff, it's not sticking out at me yet.
David Carson is somebody who has a handful of TNG and DS9 episodes. We did talk about him. He did direct Emissary, directed the pilot, and I think most famously he did Star Trek Generations, which definitely his biggest. I think he did 4 great TNG episodes. He did Yesterday's Enterprise. He did Part 2. So,
yeah, that's right, because Yesterday's Enterprise, the trick was lighting the bridge dark to make it menacing.
Correct. And then he just did the same thing for Generations.
Hey, listen, man, we watched These Are the Voyages. I like Alison Pregler calling you out on which, if you're listening to us on Spotify, jump over to YouTube. Are you doing that as a Spotify thing, or is it YouTube?
No, YouTube only. So yeah, in case you listen to this down the road and you're interested in our YouTube specific content, because we're doing some content over there to rechristen the channel in the wake of the death of Google Podcasts. We interviewed Alison Pregler, who does some of the best comedy Trek reviews, because they're a nice 15 minutes. They're all extremely well edited. Punchlines are great. And she kind of cherry picks the turbo cringe from the Berman era in a way that is very much correct, right? She's picking winners.
Yeah.
And she actually, I reached out to her randomly, said, can we interview you? And she said yes, which I did not expect. So thank you to her.
I just assumed she had COVID and was trapped.
Yeah, like she had literally nothing else to do, I guess. And we're happy for that, because we had a great conversation with her. I think we could have talked about Trek for 2 hours. So love when we can do that. It's DC Fontana, as you mentioned, old school TOS writer. This is the last piece of Trek material she ever made. She is credited as DC Fontana because famously she had to hide the fact that she was a woman to be able to write for television back in the 60s. So she was a pioneer of the sort of women's liberation era in that regard, ahead of the curve. She's so well regarded, she shows up as a character portrayed by someone else in an episode of DS9 later on. I will say nothing else. You'll know it when you see it. So the fact that she kind of showed up here to pinch it on a teleplay, there's no information about how this happened in the memory alpha. Shocking. I had to read the whole thing to see, right? Which meant I was here for 7 hours. And nothing. She just mentioned that she did it, and that was basically it. And I would love to know if there is information out there about how it is or why it is that she wound up randomly doing an episode of DS9, but I kind of feel like I saw her touch here, particularly as it relates to the story once it truly begins with what happened with Dax in her past life as Curzon, and some of that element is kind of some of in her classic TOS scripts, because she is sort of like more interpersonal mystery stuff. You know, the stuff that we would, I think, when we were reviewing Voyager episodes, would call the feminine voice. She was an expert in that.
What was the reuse? Was the cage the reuse of Menagerie or vice versa?
Menagerie was the reuse of the cage.
Who wrote Menagerie?
Good question. I don't know. I was not prepared to investigate that question.
Well, listen, it's always time for a pop quiz trivia, and V'ger, please.
It's not her. I'm looking at all of her episodes. If that was
how do you spell Menagerie? My ignorant ass over here.
Oh, you just asked the wrong motherfucker for that question.
All right. Well, I can't spell, and I can't get anywhere close to it. So, a TOSism. I don't know if it's her, but like the silent Spock syndrome, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, best friend, there's a problem. I'm at the middle of it, and my life might be on the line. And instead of having a simple, confidential conversation with an old and trusted friend, I'm just going to sit here stupidly quiet while the episode unfolds around me because I don't know. That's how we're going to tell this story infuriatingly.
I think it was infuriating until the end.
Oh, don't even, please.
I kind of liked that it was a big mystery and she just wouldn't say anything until it came out such that she could finally talk about it without kind of breaking her word of honor that she would not discuss what happened, and that it was part of a penance that she was paying for the fact that she was boinking another man's wife.
Hey, spoiler alert.
Yeah, well, so so as much as it was kind of like, man, is this just happening because of the plot? It's like, no, it's that Jadzia feels bad for the fact that Curzon was in fact boinking another man's wife, and he shouldn't have been doing that, and she feels guilty about it because he felt guilty about it, and that's why she's not saying anything.
Guilt. Let's get into it, Joe. All right.
Mm-hmm.
We're starting off the episode with some cool background on what is life like in the post-scarcity utopia of the Federation, where Kiko O'Brien's mom is having her 100th birthday party. NBD.
Hey, Japanese people, they live a long time.
Why is Colomini not in this episode realistically? I refuse to believe that they committed to his mother-in-law's birthday party to such a degree that he couldn't be there. So I don't know, maybe his wife's pregnant or he had a gallbladder infection or something. Do we get a follow-up episode of him in hell dealing with an old mother-in-law being screamed at? Is that the offset?
I mean, there's nothing in here that says why Colmini wasn't in this episode, just that he isn't.
Did he insult Rick Berman's crocodile picture collection?
He
got benched?
It's like, you said too many negative things about Nancy. Get out of here.
They were at some sort of mixer, and he mentioned offhandedly that during his last visit to Florida, he ate alligator, and
that's it. You're done.
Rick Berman took personal offense to that.
You got to say gibberish in one episode. Another episode, you're gonna wind up friends with. You're gonna do the dangerous game plot, and then you're gonna just be gone for one of them for no particular reason. Fuck you, dude.
Crocodile joke. Well, I'm not gonna explain it. Go back and listen to the back catalog. It's worth it.
So Julian's not there, or rather, so the chief's not there. So everybody's trying to keep this place working the best they can. But before we get into any shenanigans that might be happening on the station as a consequence of his absence, we have to go back to our least favorite storyline, and that is Julian Bashir, horny AF, to get down with Jadzia Dax, and Jadzia Dax having zero interest whatsoever in this man, but kind of being coy about it because she likes being chased.
Yeah. Mixed messages here about who Dax is, because the entire episode is basically Dax fucks.
Which, again, this is that early DS9 characterization kind of process by which they eventually figure out Dax fucks, and they make that her personality from that point forward. But this is like when they're still like, does Dax fuck? Dax used to fuck. Does Dax fuck now? You know, they didn't know yet.
They had not had the 10 commandments etched into the wall of the writer room, which starts with "Thou shalt have sexy robot lady." This proto 7. It took him a while to figure out. Yeah, we need to have the pretty lady put out. They're having their conversation. She's like, "I'm leaving. I'm out of here." And he's like, "Ooh, well, I'm gonna whatever." Meanwhile, roughly 4 feet away,
shrouded in darkness.
What the fuck? You know, we got a lot of mileage out of Cardassian Hallway and Voyager.
Oh, we sure did.
What is with this, what I'm going to dub the voyeur vent?
It is a vent specifically for nefarious staring.
The what's a P word? The plotting pipe. It's the voyeur vent. That's all it can be, is the voyeur vent. This
Yeah.
is the second time we've seen this thing. There is some sort of cafe with some tables,
Yeah. It's called the Replomat.
and then 4 feet away, there is a 8 foot tall, 5 foot wide vent that is big enough for at least 3 adult males to stand in. It is dark, but light can still go in through the vent. So very easily you should be able to look into the voyeur vent and see people leering at you. We saw it the first time.
It's like that meme of like Shaq hiding behind a tree, but it's still very clearly visible. It's like, this seems like a terrible place to hide. Everyone could just turn around and fucking see you.
The last time we saw it was Jake and Nog hanging out in there as they let radioactive bed bugs turn people different colors and like stretch your faces out like it was the mask. This time, we've got 3 kidnappers leering at Dax, and neither Dax nor Bashir see these guys just like mad dogs staring at them.
I wonder if they're up to something. Damn.
So I don't know what this vent's purpose is, because they leave, and then all 3 of them, I was like, okay, well, what kind of weird, like, intricate tunnel system do they have to take down? You just walk around the corner. It's a vent for literally... The only thing I can come up with that makes any sense whatsoever is that this cafe, back when this was Tarek, nor when this was a Cardassian facility, was that this entire area was some sort of laser tag arena.
Yeah. No, well, they've got the color scheme down. They just need some kind of smoke machines.
Smokes machines. And I mean, that's exactly what you would see like in a laser tag. Things like, there's no point to this room with a vent cover other than shooting people with a laser and not being shot yourself. So that's my headcanon. This Replomat's the old DS9 laser tag arena. That guy, he moved out. He was not blackmailed into staying by way of imprisoning his nephew the way Quark was, and he was able to flee DS9 successfully from Cisco. So off Dax goes, and then the 3 thugs leave the voyeur vent, and Julian gives him, I don't know, a minute head start, and then goes, I'm going to go shoot my shot again anyway. She told me no, but she didn't say hell no.
It is right on that edge of like, bro, you're gonna get on a list. Like, right there. It's right there. But fortunately for the plot,
it's missing him just sitting there. So you're telling me there's a chance?
So fortunately for the plot, his stalkery tendencies assists Dax in potentially not getting kidnapped, because she gets snatched up in the hallway. She gets immobilized, as all women do, by having her and just classic of the genre. But Julian shows up so a fist fight can start, because they let her arm go for a second and she regains her full powers.
Big mistake.
Absolutely.
So here's Julian.
Yeah.
Right? Dumb and Dumber shows up.
Yes.
3 people in uniform, and their gloves are like covered in, I don't know,
they're Moonwalker gloves. They're Moonwalker gloves.
What was the steel from Beskar? They got Beskar plated gloves. He's like, okay, cool. It's a 2v3 fight. Me and her are both wearing get my ass kicked teal jumpsuits.
These are not security jumpsuits. I do not have a gat. I am totally a wimp.
Do I A, touch my cell phone on my chest and yell, help? Or B, as the facility's doctor, do a lunge double axe handle to one of the people's heads?
It's like, my canon is this. Julian Bashir, brilliant doctor, went to Starfleet Academy, and like any good Starfleet Academy graduate, he did have to take basic Trek fighting principles, right?
Okay.
So he is familiar both on a Starfleet principle level and then as a medical level of the pure unadulterated power of the double axe handle. He knows it is the second deadliest implement that is used.
Medically, he has studied the trauma. He has seen the cracked skulls.
Yeah, it's only space pipes are more deadly. And then there's the double axe handle, a special Federation technique. And he's just so eager to pop off on it that he goes for it immediately. And that's always That's the danger, because it's an unwieldy weapon. The double axe handle. It has to be
Did you
set
ever
up
read the memory alpha on it?
on the double axe handle.
Yeah, that they had to actually develop the phaser to have a less lethal method of self-defense
Oh
for
yeah,
Sniffle.
yeah. No, there was too many casualties during the Klingon War. It was considered a war crime. So it's only special use.
What I needed in this scene was him looking at the odds, and I don't know, like a rare case of being able to hear his thoughts and say, "Wow, this is really dangerous." But if I call for help, there's no chance I'm going to get laid.
It's like, if I can solo these guys, I'm getting laid, right? Like,
Even,
that's clearly this
even
is
if
my
they
shot.
end up winning, if I can get one good hit off, that might up my chances. And then what I need at the end is like him waking up going, "Oh, gambled and lost. I should
Should have called for Odo."
have." Fuck.
So yeah, he gets whooped on and rendered unconscious. He does not call for help. Dax gets her comm badge taken away, and the chase is on. And these guys clearly know their way around the station. They are disabling security system after security system as they go, with no trouble whatsoever. Once Bashir comes to, he calls it in, and a combination of Cisco, Kira, and Odo ultimately try and keep thwarting them, but everything that they attempt to thwart them with, they are right on top of immediately. Like, they've
Yeah,
got the playbook.
these guys went online and they grabbed the game fac.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they know what the dialogue options are to get Max Paragon
They
for
stopped
sure.
at Borders and they got the what was the old game guide? The cheaty game guide that they did all the nice big video games. Not Game Genie. Well, whatever. They got the game guide, the nice glossy one.
Mm-hmm.
And they have all the doodads ready to go. Real good mission prep on this one. And finally, they catch him.
Last second, because Cisco manages to get the tractor beam working, which they had disabled.
I love that they, O'Brien's not there and nobody knows how to use the fucking transporter. At no point to go, just beam these fucking guys back.
Yeah, just pull them up.
No scrambling devices, nothing. Huge plot hole. They grab them, they come off, okay, you got us, but hey, actually, we have a warrant for this guy's arrest. I'm sorry, for this lady's arrest, and we have extradition with the Federation, and Dax is wanted for treason and murder. Dun dun dun.
And very oddly, apparently, this planet, Claystron 4, has an extradition treaty with the Federation that allows them to just go into Federation space and grab a guy. They don't have to ask. They don't have to communicate. They can just go get them with force if they wish.
And you know what? That force expands out. You're after your main target, you got them. Old Pepe Lashir or Julian Lepew. I don't know what the correct...
Julian Lepew sounds better in my opinion.
Following the smell of Dax, you got to bust him upside the head and give him a Archer grade concussion. That's fine too. I don't know who the hell these guys are. They got great lawyers and they really ran hot dick on the Federation on this.
They did. They got a fucking sweetheart deal, just handing out concussions to whoever they want when they grab people up.
By the way, shout out to Deep Space Nine's great CCTV system. I can't wait for that to be ignored in subsequent episodes.
Yes, it was nice to have functioning security cameras that mattered to the plot immediately, right?
For this time.
Yeah, at least for now. So first things first with these guys, we got to start talking about the elephant in the room, the thing we teased with. This is filled with solid Trek guest star talent. And the very first guy that we see here, the head snatcher, is a guy by the name of Tandro. And he is the son of a murdered war hero on his planet. And he is played by Gregory Itzin, who's best known to us as the asshole doctor from Critical Care on Voyager.
I love this guy. Critical Care was such a good episode.
It was.
And this dude being the embodiment of capitalism in medicine.
Yeah. Insurance sucks, the episode.
Yeah.
Insurance companies suck.
Wait a minute. What was his what the doctor finally hit him with, like, if you're too good, then you can't stretch out treatment, so you need to like limp people along or something.
He had a whole monologue about how like insurance companies were basically evil after he infected him with super AIDS or something.
No, but like there's something he did that like won the guy over. So he's like, listen, if I fuck this up, you get more money. And he's like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, the insurance fraud. He was going to engage in certain.
Oh,
it was part of the plot. You're absolutely right.
You give me the medicine, but you charge the rich people for it, and then we all make out at the end. Yeah. So Dirty Doctor, amazing. He is the badass Vulcan SWAT captain who had to go in and save Archer and T'Pol from the episode of T'Pol's boobs in Archer's face. Shadows of the Gem.
Shadows of the Gem, yeah.
Great episode. And then he is, of course, Admiral Black from the Mirror Universe episode, A Mirror Darkly, who gets to watch his security goon get snap kicked upside the head by Travis Mayweather before getting disintegrated.
When Travis Mayweather was the best version of Travis Mayweather, which was Simon Phoenix. Yes. Right.
This guy has A+ Trek resume.
So he is our first of 4 Star Trek guest star, reuse guest stars here. And he's a fucking solid gold asshole from the start. He's like, you can't stop me. I get to do whatever I want here. Fuck you. I'm taking this guy. I'm taking Dax because Dax killed my dad 30 years ago. And then Sisko's like, 30 years ago? Like, Jadzia is 28. Like, you mean Curzon did this, not Jadzia. And that's where we find where we're going to wind up with this plot, right? The purpose of this plot is to talk about the Dax symbiote and start to flesh out what that means for Trill and how that impacts who they are joined versus unjoined, right? This is a big character element here. You know, we've got one of our main cast is this unique thing that we really haven't explored, and we got to do that. We got to explain to the audience through using this vehicle what all of this means and what this sort of semi-reincarnation, semi-life continuance process actually results in.
He's quick to stress again this extradition treaty, and very legal-minded guy. I like at no point is Sisko ever like, I'm glad to see that your home planet has such robust extradition laws. It's a real shame they don't have anything in those bylaws about conflict of interest, because the last person who should be pushing this fucking agenda is the murdered guy's son.
Yeah. Like, guess you guys don't have to recuse yourself from the law enforcement officials over there? No? Okay.
So the play that Sisko makes, because he's like, well, listen, if this guy has all legal rights to do this, why did they just solid snake their way through DS9 and attack her and just real black ops this thing? And then it dawns on me, you don't have this treaty with Bajor. This is not a Federation facility. This is a Bajoran issue. And now I'm going to hand things off to my rabid sea bag of a XO who I'm going to just sit back with some fucking popcorn and watch her strangle you with your own asshole. Because you did something naughty.
She's a real bitch, and usually me who suffers. But you know what today is? Today is the day you suffer. Mm-hmm. Today is the day she's going to be shitty with a smile on her face to someone else, and I just get to watch. This is my best day. It's the best day since I took over here.
We don't know too much about her background personally yet. But what I see her do is get up in front of this guy and say, you talk to the people who killed my mom and dad in probably some weird Saw torture room.
Yeah, yeah.
And you went to the wrong website to download your game FAQ, and now I'm going to shit in your mouth. So get ready for bureaucracy. There's 2 things they can do, and it's terrorism and invoke bureaucracy. So today's your unlucky day. We're going with bureaucracy.
I do like the idea of, well, the only way you could have black ops your way in here is if you called your buddies the Cardassians, and fuck you, we don't fuck with Cardassians right here no more. I'm just fucking with you because I want to.
They have a formal alliance. Like,
yes,
this isn't just, hey, you called them out of the blue. There's established diplomatic relations. Like, this is an excellent scene for that Cardassian Bajoran throwback through Kira. I loved it. And she has not been in a bad scene yet.
No, not a one.
Like,
No, I mean, Kira Nerys is probably the breakout character from the show overall. Like, people love Cisco, people love a lot of things, but Kira is just like solid from the whole thing.
I haven't seen her phone anything in yet, and real Vasquez vibes. And Vasquez is a name that comes up frequently when we're talking Star Trek because that was the template for Tasha Yar, which I don't think they got anywhere near with that character, minus the fact she had a rough background.
Mm-hmm.
But real Vasquez vibes off of Kira Nerys. Maybe it's the short hair. I think it's just that personality, man. And she's hot when she's mean too.
There is something to that, though, right? That sort of a female aggression is very specifically, it gets you going.
I'm going to tell you right now. I know there's mirror universe stuff, and they put her anywhere near Dominatrix, and I'm sold.
Oh, Peter, you better fucking buckle your ass in, brother. Let's go. You're gonna have a rough ride.
Okay.
So,
speaking of rough rides,
a really fun ride. I'm not sure. Like, it's gonna be one of the two.
It's the second one. The rough ride here is going to be bureaucracy. So they don't bring in a judge; they bring in a mediator from Bajor, which is, of course, who other than Sean Uxbridge.
Yes. So Anne Haney is the name of the actress. I think she's probably most famous as Miss Chapel from the movie The American President. But she is somebody who had I think a rich 90s backlog of material as the sort of wizened secretary, right? She did that role in Liar Liar. She had that role in Mrs. Doubtfire. She's very recognizable as an actress. And she was, for Star Trek, she was Rishon Uxbridge from TNG episode with, oh God, what was the actual name of that one?
Honey, I genocided a race.
Yes. With the ultra powerful alien that destroyed an entire race because they killed
Kevin Uxbridge.
Yeah, Kevin Uxbridge.
Horgana? No.
The
Husnak.
The Husnak, yes.
The Husnak.
So she shows up, and I love her vibe from the start. She says, "I'm 100 years old. I do not intend to be here all week. I intend to be here until lunch."
Kiko's mom?
A lot of Centurions in this episode.
Yeah.
Too, which is odd because it happened twice. But it's it's a great vibe. Like, angry grandma's here and she doesn't want to be here, and she knows this is going to get fucking weird. She knows from the start exactly the argument that Cisco's going to make, and she's kind of angry about it. And she also, and maybe you can tell me what you think, she gives off a vibe from the start of like, I'm not extraditing Dax. I don't buy the argument that we should hold her responsible for Curzon's actions.
No,
I don't do really anything to suggest she's like down for that.
She puts off a pretty cold B vibe. I could have seen her going for it. I was more interested in Kira turning into terrorist / lawyer mode.
Yes.
Okay, she's not only good at car bombs, but also extradition laws.
So the trials actually in Quark's bar that Odo had to, bribe Quark to allow, or threaten bribe. And this results in, we're intercutting a kind of like we'll call it a Measure of a Man, drumhead style courtroom drama thing, which Trek does a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's
where Trek does well.
With a huge improvement to a trope that we've hated in the past. We hated Detective Tuvok. Detective Odo is far more effective. Detective Odo finds shit out. Detective Odo solves crimes.
Detective Odo is willing to disregard his boss's agenda in favor of what he considers to be justice, which is maybe not real justice, which is interesting. Like Odo's shifty. That's a bad word.
He is, though. It's very accurate.
I'm having a hard time putting my finger on like which side of the coin he's going to fall on any given episode, because he's not really law abiding. He's like hired justice until I don't know. Oh, I guess there's if Dax really did kill this guy and he doesn't have a clear indicator that the guy who died was a piece of shit that deserved it, then Dax is the clear bad guy and he's not interested in hiding that. So interesting use to send him off to go interview. Meanwhile, back in the courtroom, and that's what I wanted to say about this lady. What's her name? Ilon, or no, just the arbiter. Where did this lady come from? How did this old judge person survive Cardassian occupation? Like, I get this character in a stable society, but when you've been oppressed and like murdered all over the place and like death camped and everything else,
why there's 100-year-old judges doesn't make a ton of sense.
Prim and proper, nice old, not nice, but like forthright old ladies.
I mean, could very well have been someone that was a off-world Bajoran that returned with the rest of the diaspora.
But then getting a great place in the provisional government, like
not really a great place though. Like, go schlep your way up to fucking DS9 and hear this stupid thing about some damn Federation drama
in a bar.
In a bar. Yeah, it doesn't sound actually like a very glorious assignment. She doesn't want to be there. She wants to get the fuck back home. Like, kind of buy it. Like, you know, like, all right, you can go do this.
Odo as a detective is good. Odo as a dirty health and safety and building code inspector, even better.
Oh yeah. He likes turning Quark's screws, and it's always fun to watch Quark try and like call him out on it, and their interactions are gold.
Yeah, that's how they wrote off Quark, and this was, if you don't give me this, I'm going to cite you for building code violations and fuck your shit up.
Yeah, I'm not going to grandfather your bar location. That's true evil.
So old Odo is down on the surface of whatever the fuckistan. And he's talking to the widow of the general who Dax is accused of killing.
Which happens to be Data's mom.
Wouldn't you know?
Yeah.
Which happens to be Valar, the famous Vulcan hero.
Oh, yeah. To Paul's idol that was possibly involved with like a coup on the planet that she was an ambassador on.
That's a real scandalous lady. She's involved in a lot of guerrilla military actions.
She is hoeing around with Curzon Dax. She is secretly a robot, and she is secretly a terrorist. But
what's her name? Fiona Flanagan?
Correct. And she had 3 very memorable roles on Trek. It was those 3. And it's very different vibe between all of them, right? When she was Valar, sure. It was very grandma. It was very like, you know, they were expecting on Enterprise when she showed up that she was going to be very prim and proper, but she actually wanted to talk with them.
Cool as fuck.
She was just kind of like cool grandma, you know, and like, obviously Julia Tanner was trying to be mom, didn't know she was a robot to Data. And here we've got basically old lover, right? And widow.
Could they have been any more blatant, like, I was cheating without saying it?
They were going for that, like, was it Sam Spade style, like, oh, I don't understand. You know, I'm the femme fatale, but I'm trying to act like I am not really guilty, very poorly with my mid-Atlantic received pronunciation. But they were trying to do kind of like the noir thing with Odo on the surface there, I think, with that. Still though, it's a solid move to bring in someone like this to like portray this character that is, you know, you only get to spend a few minutes with her, so you got to have somebody who's kind of going for it to feel the emotion you're trying to deliver. And I think it does a pretty good job, all things considered.
The courtroom stuff, the arbiter, no, not arbiter, Ilon / Sopek / Admiral Black has a great idea. He's going to dispel this notion that Trills are not new people by getting some Benedict Arnold from Trill to come out and say all the right stuff to defang Sisko's argument. And Sisko has a very interesting scene where he pulls Kira Nerys and Bashir, and he's like, we are going to get this lady free. This is my best friend. We're going to get him free. Kira, I need you to pretend you're a lawyer and go research Federation law instead of running the station. And then Julian, I want you to do whatever it takes to disprove it. And if you find something, either of you that finds something that says I'm wrong and we need to stop, tell me about it so I can make up a lie and keep going.
Yeah, the only right answer are answers that are the ones we want to hear, and we will find them and we will argue for them because that's what lawyers do. That's what you don't take no for an answer. You find a way to argue your way to yes. And the story hinges on the concept that Cisco was very close friends with Curzon. Curzon was a father figure. Curzon was a mentor. He was like that kind of mentor that's cool and kind of gets up to some nonsense.
Devil's three-way mentor, yeah.
Yeah, he's like the kind of mentor you hit on chicks with.
Mhm.
And he doesn't want Dax to die. He doesn't really know Jadzia, and he talks about how he doesn't really know Jadzia. And the plot waits a long, long time for Jadzia to kind of step in and say, actually, no, I'm very much still, in a lot of ways, the old friend you had. And I'm not saying anything because I'm feeling shame for what happened, even if, there's obviously been some major changes and I'm not entirely still that person. Um, Overall, what's your take on what they delivered in terms of Trill and Dax specifically in this episode? Because this
So
is
they're going to
really a
deliver
big
this
old bunch of lore for you to consume.
world building, right? They bring in this minister from Trill, and he gets questioned, and he starts fleshing out what's what. The minister they're bringing in, Seller Piers. All right, this guy, he got to be, it's like basically everybody's favorite space junkie, right? This is the guy that was Ramos in Symbiosis, which you remember as a TNG episode where they have like electricity cat fight.
Oh yeah, and then he was the first Zindi we ever met on the mining colony.
There's kind of a drug addict there too, Kissick or whatever. He says that you, first of all, to be considered for the joining program, you need to be the best of the best of the best. You're not allowed to join until you're like 21, and you can willfully make the decision to surrender your individuality and have this great honor of receiving a symbiote that will bring all of these past experiences forward and turn you into a new person. And as the symbiote enters a new host, that catalog comes through, you merge. There's two separate brainwaves, but they function in unison. And if one were to die, the other one would follow with it. So it's an all-in thing. I like the idea that it's a great honor. I like the idea that there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. I like the idea that there is a crazy big user agreement that you're signing off on. And one of those things specifically is that I willfully accept the sins of this thing's lifespan as my own. And it pretty much directly addresses exactly what's happening here.
It addresses it both on a level of like lived experience as well as like legal culpability in ways that I thought were interesting. So what Jadzia ultimately reveals is she, as Jadzia, is feeling intense guilt over Curzon's actions because they are not actions that she, Jadzia, would ever have committed. But now they're part of her. She feels them, and she also feels Curzon's own regret for having engaged in them. And that's what's causing her to shame her into silence. It's a very interesting kind of point for them to take here. And I think second, the fact that they're, the way Bashir puts it, they're two computers working in harmony. They're not like one central processing unit, it's two central processing units.
It's a dual core.
Yeah. And I feel like they end up developing that idea really well as they continue to explore like Trill lore and Dax specifically, and how one is different from the other, but how they're also the same, and how all of these different lifespans that Dax has lived ends up creating this particularly unique being that's very different depending on who inhabits it, yet still has this strong sense of continuity that you actually get to see as they figure out how to do stories with it. So
I feel like whatever party column he was at where he said something bad about crocodiles, that Terry laughed at it. And
Their
Rick
lack of
Berman's like,
sexual appeal specifically, yeah.
Rick Berman was like, well, enjoy being in an episode and not getting any lines and not making any money, bitch. Because she is just sitting silent the majority of this episode. A lot of it is with Cisco going crazy about like, why won't you talk to me and tell me anything? And she's just sitting there like, zip, I'm not saying nothing. And then he's like, I want to punch you in the face. I'm crazy. We're going to have a throwback story to like where I almost got court-martialed or I was going to basically kill somebody had you not punched me out first. Like, this Cisco guy is unhinged. Even before the Borg killed his wife.
Yeah, he was a little loose. he was a loose. You're a loose cannon, Cisco. Give me your pips and your phaser.
Yeah, well, probably for the best because this guy, he's out there. She's sitting there quiet through the whole thing. The Arbiter, this is where it really starts coming through what you're saying. Like, she's like, listen, you're wasting your time. I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm
like
fucking doing this.
I'm not fucking killing this woman. Are you kidding me? Like, this
hey,
bullshit. This crime was committed 2 years before she was born. She's clearly a new being, at least.
Don't have a statute of limitations on my planet. And she's like, yeah, but listen, this is 30 fucking years. What's up? Well, a lot of this was sealed military record, and we just recently got access to it. Like, okay, well, hey, what are we gonna do? Dax being willing to let Jadzia die, like, that was the conversation I needed Cisco to have. I get that you're feeling guilty. I get that you don't want to tell me what's going on. But listen, Dax, whatever happened before, you're about to put an innocent in front of a firing squad here. You cannot
end 12 generations of life, right? Like, all of the lived experiences of Dax will end because you just won't defend yourself.
Yeah, listen, the first 11 were all part of the decision to bang out Data's mom. Okay. Dax was not a part of that gangbang. It's unfair to drag her into this.
Yeah.
Also, hey, old friend, we're in the middle of a big fucking deal here. We're trying to broker peace for all of the planet Bajor. There's this fucking wormhole. I am in the hurt locker, and I do not have the help to get through this. You're basically giving me a cold shoulder, too. Like, there is no good reason in any of this. Under the assumption that you killed this guy, and by the time the truth comes out, like, I didn't kill anybody. I just fucked the guy's wife. In the loosey-goosey, super sexy 24th century, mind you. Right? You think Riker would give a shit about dying for some guy's wife he had sex with? Do you think Tom Paris, in one of the worst episodes of Star Trek Voyager ever, the shithead episode, literally the shithead, what was that fucking one? Not Time and Again.
Yeah, I forget the name of it too, but yeah, it was very early. It was Detective Tuvok. It's when so many memes were born. But yeah.
Wow. This is a lot of similarities. Let me look here real quick. Here's my Voyager worst of list, still hanging on my wall with dust on it. The Cloud, Learning Curve, Time and Again, Ex Post Facto, Tattoo, Elogium.
I think it might have been Ex Post Facto. Hold on.
Was it Non Sequitur?
Oh, yeah, Non Sequitur. I forget which of these it was. Non Sequitur, Voyager. Come on. No, Non Sequitur is the one where he goes back to where it's Harry Kim's tubular day back on Earth. Season 1.
Ex Post Facto.
Is it Ex Post Facto? Okay. Yes. So yeah, Tom did in fact bang someone's wife in Ex Post Facto. That is the plot.
And then the guy died. Tom and Dax. Hey, they're both Coxmen, right? I think we could maybe make some. I don't think Dax ever served any hard time in a very nice penal colony somewhere in New Zealand, but it's ridiculous. This guy's willing to die, even if he knew that the mom was guilty. There's no good fucking reason why Dax is quiet through this. I do not accept it.
It is odd that Star Trek takes a very specific moral objection to infidelity, right? Because that's the difference that we're really talking about here. You're right. The Roddenberry Trek ethos from TOS through to the Berman era is there's a great deal of sexual liberation in the 24th century, but it's never infidelity. It's just people single messing around with each other, right?
What was the one in Next Gen where they visit the doctor living alone on the planet, and then he thinks that Riker screwed his wife, and then he does like something crazy and traps the Enterprise.
But that's just it, right? Like, because it's a story about infidelity and how that's a severe objection in essentially every culture, which is true. There's truth to why that would be extraordinarily objectionable. It's literally one of the 10 commandments, right? Don't fuck around with someone else's wife. So the fact that there's like a specific taboo towards that does seem a bit odd to us now in 2024, granted. But I'm going to go ahead and extend some grace to a show made in 1993. That was still just kind of a hard line you didn't cross.
And again, you got a writer from original TOS in there, so those real old values are clearly present in what's going on here. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? You're going to let her die on the stand? You know, how are we ever going to win this? Sisko puts himself up on trial, and his entire thing boils down to, this is my friend and you shouldn't kill them because I don't think they're possible and nobody could possibly lie to me. Dumb again. Sisko looks like a real clown through this whole thing. And then Odo, who suddenly forgets how phones work, in classic Star Trek, walks in at 11:59 and goes, I got here just in time. Like, he should have transported him, be like, sorry, I was going to call, but I was watching the CCTV, the fucking pinhole cams I have hidden all over Quark's bar to snoop on them, and I saw you were about to lose, so we transported in just in the nick of time. And the guy's like, Mom! And she's like, hush, son. No, he didn't kill him. We were cheating. Oh, my great shame. Oh, and he's like, Mom, how could you have sex with Dax? No. And then
there was a moment where it's like, is that Dax's son in there? It's like you have an overactive imagination. It was the only denial that was offered.
So now everything's done. Whatever. Decent episode up to this point. And I'm going to put this right on top there with almost Threshold in terms of zany last minute what the fuck.
Yeah, just like out of the fucking nowhere with the last thing that's going to be said.
Because my impression through all of this, based on all my Star Trek knowledge and all the shit I've seen and general storytelling formula, is they're accusing Dax of killing this guy. This guy is dead. There's the mom. There's a great shame. And for some reason, Dax is protecting the mother. Okay? That tells me the person responsible for sending the transmission that got the general killed is the mom. And that is why he's protecting her, is because he doesn't want her, Dax does not want the mom to die.
Correct.
Maybe the general is a bad person, which she certainly alludes to during her conversations with Odo, which I took to mean like, he was slapping her around and throwing her down the stairs.
Yeah.
He drank too much and took a belt to her frequently or whatever. That This is a bad guy. Dax knew he was a bad guy, and she got him killed, and I'm going to swallow the shame because I loved her, and I know if I don't fucking fall on the sword for this, he's going to die. That might be worth killing the entire Dax legacy and stranding Sisko and everything else. None of that's true. The mom did not kill this guy, so now he's willing to fucking die rather than admit, I fucked somebody.
Well, I think it's not as bad as you're saying, because the Curzon was a diplomat and he was hiding the fact that this guy was a traitor, because it turns out that ended up allowing this planet to like get its act together and finally achieve.
Stop right there. Everything you've just said is about 60 words more than what this episode fucking gives, because this all comes to light as Jadzia and the mom are walking down the thing, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I'm so happy to see you again, blah, blah, blah. And who would have ever known that he was a traitor and the rebels killed him? What? I said, what the fuck just happened? What? I had to pull up the fucking script and go back and read it and try it, and then pull up this general whatever's Wikipedia or Memory Alpha This was a great super war hero. And as I understand from my research, the general represented the legitimate government on the planet. There was a rebellious faction. This general, for whatever fucking reason, said, hey, rebels, I am going to feed you insider information. And they went, great, we've got a general feeding us insider information. That's a great benefit. Let's kill him. And the mom knew. Roll credits.
Just that's it. Little face touch. Done.
Kind of ridiculous. The mom should have been the killer. And I'm not willing to go back and read this Wikipedia because it's 900 pages. Why was the mom not the killer?
No, I mean, everything you said is right. I'm defending it a little bit because I think there's a line to take that helps explain it, but you're absolutely correct. The episode seems to be positioning itself to draw that conclusion in that scene of like, Dax, thank you so much. I can't believe that after all these years in another body, you've loved me enough that you would hide the secret that, you know, I was responsible for this. And it's like, it's important for not only for you, but that, you know, he's remembered with honor and it helped your planet. And you were free of this man who was hurting you and horrific to you. And, you know, we both have to, like, it felt like the show was going out of its way to do exactly what you're saying. And then it takes this other turn. And it's like, I get it. Like, I guess like Dax is a diplomat and this was important to him professionally, but like, that's it. That's what you're going to go with at the end. Okay.
Did Kirzan Dax, the dummy, know that the general was a traitor and got himself killed? I'm going to assume no. At which point, who is the most likely person that got this guy killed? Probably his wife that he was abusing, right? The son was able to go in and look at fucking logs and figure out where the communication came from, and everybody else had an alibi. I refuse to believe that Jadzia Dax or Curzon Dax wasn't like, oh my god, my best friend just fucking died. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. So either A, he didn't, and would have to know that one of two things happened. Either Dax knew this guy was a traitorous piece of shit who got himself killed through treachery, at which point he's not willing to tarnish this guy's reputation. He's going to let himself die for a traitor's actions. Or he should assume, like, well, who would have gotten this guy killed? Probably his wife that he was being mean to in some capacity. I'm going to let myself die to save the life of the woman who got my best friend murdered. None of these scenarios make any fucking sense on the level of I'm willing to die for a crime I did not commit and pull my new host into it and strand Cisco and all this shit happened 30 years ago. This is fucking stupid. This is some real dumb shit. You know what? I'm going to say this is a bad episode, minus all the great cameos. This is classic TOS, like last minute, like dumb.
I think that they do a good job of planting a lot of seeds with the Dax stuff that ultimately prevents it from being a bad episode. But it is definitely a bit of a meh. Despite the highlights, it is still that sloppy early season 1 crap, you know, we're used to out of every Trek series. And this is just a perfect example of that. And guess what? There's another example of that we're watching next week.
Would it be The Passenger, season 1, episode 9? An alien criminal attempting to prolong his life hides his consciousness inside the mind of a station crew member. Man, retread city, huh?
This is like another one of those that should have been a fucking goddamn TNG episode or something. Like, it just not the right call. But you know, that's the story, right? We gotta get these growing pains out of the way. And so we'll continue to do that with all of you next week. Thanks for listening. See you then.